welcome back. We going in deep. Okay. So, this is one of my favorite shaligrams I've come across, because of these things here that are very much lobe-like, but they're coming off of the teeth here. So this is going to be about shaligrams again. If you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely see my previous episodes on shaligrams in my shaligram playlist. In terms of, they're not fossils, they're caused by current flows, which things like this exemplify, where there are typically the teeth. Like this happens in the so-called ammonite fossil. It also, I never noticed this, has little ridges even maybe across there. But then this is very uncommon for it to form a lobe that like uses the teeth as a like place to come from here, especially this one not so clear, but so just like the other videos from Rudraksh Guru, I found this one's video. So these are all the images I had in the past, and then I believe I started taking images from the video. So we see this connects over, this connects over. There's teeth over here that connect to these teeth, that connect to these lobes. So it's got shaligram features, but none of them like cohesively forming an ammonite features. None of them cohesively forming an ammonite. It's also got random teeth in the middle there that maybe relate back through there. The way this generally goes across, at least starting here, but probably connected back over there, and forms like teeth, waves, ripples, that then reach a point over here, possibly came from, like especially there, and then channeled through this way, I don't know. So we can see these weird tooth-like shapes off of the teeth here that are going across almost dendritically, but not really, like behaving like dendrites. The circle here. Some more of these chambers off of the boundaries. Off of the boundary. These chambers. Where this one looks to be generally approaching an ammonite shape over here especially, but not forming it completely. Where none of this stone really has a complete ammonite in it. That makes it so interesting. Like this here has chamber-esque. It didn't fully etch there as well, and it has like a almost like a big wave to it. So it really has a semblance of a dendrite right there. This is kind of forming little chambers as well. Maybe there as well. Lots of interesting features. ripple there with an almost arrowhead over there. Okay, so back to the images I've taken. Maybe real quick. We can find that video. I should probably link the actual link to the video, and not just to this right here generic link. That's what I did for the last one. Although maybe by now it will have changed if I changed it. I don't know. Whenever you watch this, so anyway. I don't see it yet. Okay, I gotta look closer, I guess. Whoa. That's pretty interesting. Why don't I see it yet? Is that it? No. There it is. So I pretty much just took a little screenshot. Is what these were from this video. Let's just see if the video brings any more details out. Can definitely see in there, but something going on in the top of that lobe where it eroded out. Oh. Okay, so back to pictures. I didn't see anything that I didn't already mention. Very interesting Shaligram. Just generally, I don't think science, as we know it, has the capacity to explain that Shaligram and many others. And the only thing it can do is invent new species that are only visible through trace fossils, where they do intricate things that make no sense if you actually think about it, compared to a random walk. This one's real interesting that it has this slice, like this. Like, why is there a slice here? It's not even angled with the ammonite, so it just sliced through here. But it is angled with like this. Oh shit. Oh Lord. And this looks maybe related to this over here. Pretty interesting. I'm not sure if that's the same ones. This one, if you look closely here, doesn't it have like a spiral here? Like it has a, definitely has that, and definitely has this. Which then together are like that, which is a little odd to be next to here. And then if we look over here, it definitely has a ridge like this way. Generally around. Inward around. So there's definitely on both sides of this, which is supposedly the shell of an ammonite. This is supposedly imprinted by an ammonite, has a chakra like this over here and here. Within the imprint of this one's ammonite, it doesn't make any sense from a fossilization standpoint. You can even see a little that, like an energetic connection that way. That might be common, although I think it just spirals this way. Like the energy here actually spirals this way, around here, and then around this way. So this is like creating a barrier, so current going around this way runs into it and wraps this way to a degree, which reinforces that there is really something here. Proof positive these are not fossils. It looks like there might even be another one there, and maybe another one there. That would be interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of like lotus flower petals, flower petals around the main chakra. Definitely has, that looks even hexagonal. This one, did I talk about this one? More standard, the way the particles of possibly pyrite or whatever this may be, that is gold in appearance. The way that is distributed here is pretty interesting. This is also a hard break up here, like a very sharp boundary where the matrix does not continue, which really doesn't make sense from an erosion standpoint, why it does things of this nature, where it just breaks, but then is still like of a similar nature in terms of its smoothness. Like it definitely looks as weathered as over here, generally speaking, just like it broke though. This is what it looks like from this angle, which is pretty interesting. So when we look at it this way, it looks like that the other side. So it's pretty flat. It's flat and the chakras formed like sideways. Within the flat plane, they formed sideways. Usually they would form so that the separation between them is along the equator, where this is the top and that is the bottom. This is the bottom face, this is the top face. I've never seen this happen. I'm not sure why it would do this. I mean, I've seen it happen where it takes this general shape, but I've never seen it do it like this, where I interpret just by looking at it that this is the bottom. It tends to be the bottom faces like this, more just shale. And then the top face tends to be not like this, but more like the sides are. It tends to be more like this, sideways. Not sure what to make of it. In that regard, it must be something to do with its shape. Being so, like, disc-like. It's very disc-like. Maybe it formed in a larger, like a chamber in a larger spiral eddy, where this was a chamber that separated from the rest of the ammonite, where this was just one, like, little slice. Because we've come across many discs before. And it's possible in some of those instances, because of the current flows, it induces eddies sideways through them, almost like connections between, maybe, although it doesn't actually pass through that well. Okay, let's move on. So that's that one. This one, smooth chakra down there. It's nice and smooth, though. Like it was exposed to more uniform currents that just made it smooth, but the surface had already formed a chakra, so it was still a chakra being influenced. Lots of dendrites over here. Over there. Got this, like, node at the top. The cap thing going over that then drains down through the top, through the chakras, and separates out material into here that creates this wave this way, pushing material forward and then passing through it, but separating it into the materials that make the ammonite shell, while the shale passes more through and then goes back around and just forms like a dark matter surroundings. If dark matter exists, I'm not sure. We're gonna need some discussion on that one, maybe, unless I find some more reason to accept it as being basically the Matrix, like this, where, like, this is a galaxy, but the dark matter is the Matrix that it's within. I don't know. It kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I don't want to just rush to that conclusion, because I do believe my previous interpretation of why galaxy rotation curves are not fully accounting for all details still is relevant. Basically, that radius near the center of a galaxy is not being accounted for, where we just use, like, basic trigonometry. We look at how far it is, look at the angle between the two edges, and say, therefore, it's this length across, and just think in terms of every apparent light year is equal to every observed light year, actual light year. What is observed as a light year is equal to every other light year that is in the observed equal, like, distance. If I could just go like this and move that around, they're all one light year, but that just doesn't account for the way that so-called black holes, which are actually just, like, really, really massive systems like planets and stars, but just so large that they emit beyond the visible light spectrum, and basically are seen as the X-ray clouds that surround them, is really like the body of the system. So that's my interpretation, as I've talked about in many places for many reasons that I've talked about in those places. So it's possible the galaxy rotation curves are off because we're not accounting for the distance that's hidden. And if we did, it would make sense because that would make a flattened rotation curve where that's what we observe is flattened rotation curve. If there's hidden radius near the center of a galaxy, all galaxies, that we're not accounting for because they have black holes at their center that hide radius because that's just their nature when they're that relative mass ratio compared to our building block of atoms. Our building blocks, our largest building blocks, are what induce how we see our surroundings. So if we're composed of atoms, what we call atoms, then we look at everything else using those atoms, and it means that we see through that lens. But that doesn't mean a black hole is a black hole. It's also a star, it's a planet, it's a atom itself. So there's nothing different about black holes except for their sheer mass. It leads us to perceive them different due to the mass ratio. Kind of like how planets and stars don't look the same. But Earth is a star, like it emits in the visible or in the infrared spectrum, not the visible light spectrum. That's why we don't call it a star, but it emits in the infrared spectrum. It has sunspots called elves. It has solar flares called sprites. I know they're fun names. It has an air glow of the ionosphere, which is a photosphere. It literally is a star. As to our black holes. So there's definitely unaccounted for things that would make it possible that dark matter is simply unnecessary with regard to galaxy rotation curves. And therefore, it wouldn't be the matrix because the matrix would be part of what's already being accounted for in some way, but it's possible that it just is the matrix, effectively, like the surroundings that are more just surroundings that the system's contained by, but not energetically coupled with in the same way as it is all its constituents. Here, this is one shell, so-called ammonite creature, whatever people want to say. It's one unit, whereas it's then surrounded by a bulk mass, which is basically how galaxies would form. These are definitely fractal, iterative, fundamental particles. That's what makes Shaligrams so important, is they really exemplify iterative, across scale, fundamental processes. Like the concept of an elementary particle assumes there to be one in terms of a building block upon which the universe is composed of. But there are iteratively fundamental particles that function the same, where an atom exists and then at some point up the chain another system mimics an atom, which is Shaligrams, is batholiths, is planets, is moons, stars, anything that becomes particulate and is spherical generally becomes the next octave that then is itself the elementary particle. It's iteratively so that it mimics other layers of that same thing, where there's not everything is itself an iterative fundamental particle. Most things are composed of them, but those things that are iterative fundamental particles still occur on scales that we can see them with our eyes, right here. Okay. Oh. the details of which are still being worked out. This looks like a Wu-Tang. Little crack off the far tip there, which is very common. Two different, completely different color materials. Just shows how it's separated. It even looks like there's like a divide in the back where generally it's this color and then generally that color. That currents can do, because, like as we've talked about, it basically due to the mass difference of the grains of the fine grained shale versus a more coarse grain like quartz and whatever else is over here. Whatever's in this chunk versus what's in this chunk is much more coarse grained. So when a current is flowing that's moving both particles, then that current affects both particles differently, where the fine grained one is more easily moved while the coarse grained one doesn't move as much. So under the same current, they don't flow at the same rate, which then causes them to separate in a way where basically one's going and the other goes faster. So it's as if one of them is going this way while the other is just there, and the other is going past it and that way forward. So they're kind of doing this where they're moving apart from one another. Even though they're both flowing in the same direction, they flow apart from one another like this, where maybe it actually induced a divide in the material. Like, this doesn't really make sense for just fossilization. It's literally only explainable by coincidence. Oh, it's just happenstance that this chunk, not even here, not even the surrounding matrix whatsoever, really, but this chunk was what do they call it, replaced, like when the particles come in and replace the other particles in the fossilization process, was replaced by this material, while over here, this chunk, it didn't like that material. It decided it would be all fine-grained particles. It literally would have to be like in the rock previously to even fathom explaining it. It's fucking ridiculous, is what it is. Also looks maybe related to here as a general boundary. Looking ridiculous, man. That's pretty cool how there's these little white specks right at the corner and then right in there. Like, why is it doing that? You can't just say coincidence. Hold the mic up. No one else can talk. No one else can talk. Yeah, we said coincidence. Yeah, your explanation doesn't make sense to me. It's the first time I come across it. Especially given that you're saying that you know better and what? Where's your credentials? Don't bring details up. We're establishing if this is worth my time. You've had enough time already. Go away. These crackpots. We'll figure it out. So we know coincidence is highly relevant. It's almost the exclusive cause of everything. Plus time, of course. I mean, as long as there's enough time, anything can happen. You want two sides divided? based on their color and their material. Give it time, bro. Anything can happen. And then if it does happen, well, it didn't have to happen. It was just coincidence. That's what made it happen. Coincidence. You know, don't try to read into it like it means anything. It means coincidences happen. Stop explaining things that we already explained. We're so scientific. Science is about coincidences. What a coinky dink. Huh. What is going on here, science? Oh, you know, it's erosion. Coincidence. Okay, I don't have a really good explanation for what is going on here. Let's see. This is probably the bottom face. Maybe? Top face. This one's top face. That has this little lobe over here. That's interesting. Possibly this one. It's highly likely this is the top face. It just... yeah, this is the bottom. This is the top. I can just tell now, part of me, as I do those things. It's more so just for trying to figure out which direction things are flowing and like what currents are at play. Like at the bottom, it's kind of the bottom, so it's like against something, maybe like something preventing flow through as much as atop it, where it's like a easier energy level to flow atop. That's generally my thoughts, like for outside currents interacting with it. Like it's harder for the currents to go under, so it tends to produce a more just like blank side because there's not as much cross currents. But the top side has cross currents more typically, like going this way, kind of like can I find it? That one I should have a bunch of pictures of it now. Pictures like that. Oh. Oh. There it is, this one. This one. Although... that's probably the top face in this instance, so maybe this is the bottom face. And so maybe this is the bottom face. I don't know. When they're very balanced, it's hard to tell. But it looks like there's possibly cross currents in this area, so I think we can definitely see this way. But this generally looks like a chunk suggestive of this way. Okay, let's keep going. Some chambers. I feel like I might have talked about this, so I'll just kind of rush through it. Or at least one like it. That kind of looks like a potential chakra there. Like a weird shape. It is kind of where whatever's going on here, where this mass breaks off and enters into the like void of the top of the opposing chakras missing. Looks like it literally exploded off, like pressure broke the piece off like a supernova. Broke this whole chunk off. Had probably eroded over here and snapped over here. Like this looks like it cut through the rock in this region enough to just separate it. And there was enough internal pressure in here pushing against this, like, lid holding the pressure in, that the lid was the weak point because of the severing of the lid from the rest of the rock, so that it only had this connection really, and then it just snapped when the top blew, and then the internal pressure relieved. Perhaps even related to why this is, the mass is over here. I don't know. Like this probably wrapped over and overlaid, like kind of like how this happens. It wraps over and then overlay with the thing like this. Not as defined as this one, just more generically happening, but where it went over and then went this way, over top generally like that. But this piece is broken off. Which is maybe a lot like pieces. Do I have any? I was thinking kind of like this without this piece. Just like a chunk that like has perhaps a hard break in it. I'm not sure if that one did. This one. Then the opposing side has these really big teeth structures and like directly adjacent to the more normal, smaller ones. Why would it do that? There's no fossil explanation for this. Well, because the Ammonites fossil, the shell was there and it like shaped the rock up, and then the currents flowed through the shaped rock thanks to the presence of the shell, and that led to waves as if they're just larger scales of these things. Coincidence, like ultimately coincidence. We don't know. We're just gonna go with like generally coincidence and excuses. So you're saying that the structure influenced the currents passing through the region? Is that what you're saying? And then that the structure influencing the currents passing through the region then influenced the structure? So you're saying there's a chain reaction of structure influencing the currents flowing over the region that then causes structure to then influence the currents flowing over the region to then cause structure to influence the currents flowing over the region. It's almost as if you're saying currents did it. Yeah, that's really the only explanation, is that currents did it. Sure, based on the shape, but that's because the currents made that shape under high pressures while shaping the rock itself. Currents did it. Maybe structure and currents, something to do with like a mass and makes me think of like Bighorn Mountain versus Yellowstone in the magnetic anomaly map, as well as Mauna Loa versus Mauna Kea, which I'll talk about in a second, hopefully. If you don't know where Yellowstone, if you don't know where Yellowstone was on this map, where would you guess? You can see here's the United States, here's Maine, here's the West Coast, here's Baja California, here's Mexico. Alright, so I don't know, maybe here, right? Like right there. Would that be your guess? If that's your guess, if you don't already know, this is Bighorn Mountain right here. Yellowstone is right next to it over here. Like coupled energetically to it, for sure. There's a coupling where there's like a row of these chambers, kind of like the Shaligram stuff we've been seeing with rows of chambers recently. But Yellowstone is hot magma, whereas Bighorn Mountain, this is why we don't really know about this structure or care about it. No one talks about it except me. Like, in terms of that there's a structure this is large surrounding Bighorn Mountain is unspoken of as far as I know. I don't know. Pardon me if there's people out there who have at least noticed it and talked about it, and especially if they studied it. Whether or not their explanation is up to par, besides the point. Yellowstone, though, is not there. So there's this, like, mass, like, but it's a fluid, it's a hot magma, whereas this one is a mass, but it's a cold, dense, compacted mound. So they kind of behave as opposites. And same goes for Mauna Kea versus Mauna Loa. How's this going? Oh, we gotta switch it up here. Oh. Bunch of eruptions here because this is where the magma is connected to, and then over here is this really dense mound volcano called Mauna Kea that doesn't erupt anymore because it's pretty much a dense mound next to a cold dense mound next to the hot fluid mound that's containing hot fluid. Same thing going on over here. Here's Bighorn, totally unsuspecting that that's going on below it. Bighorn. Can't really tell there's this huge, like, surrounding system here. But that thing that we see is actually, I believe it's like right here. Like right there. Don't think it's this whole region. I don't think so. It's just this here that we saw here. This region. Let's see. 107.6, 44.5, minus 107. 44.5. And then 107.6. 44.5, 107.6. Pretty much there. If we go to the boundary over here, let's say 107.2, 44.6. 0.2, it would be there. 44.6. Be up here somewhere. It's pretty much over here, so a little further than I was mousing it, so like maybe out there. But certainly like coming up and touching the crust, whatever the mound is, this mass is physically supporting the crust, touching it in a way where it produces this chakra here, this like node, a terminal that the Yellowstone like connects across. These connect across this like separator region where like it's short-circuited across between these two to maybe balance out. I don't know exactly. But this was formed at the KT boundary. Where so are shaligrams. And before, I don't know if they're dated to the KT boundary. I mean, they're in the Himalayas. So they weren't there before. They weren't really there at like 400 million, I don't think. I don't think they formed until the Himalayas were forming, which really was 66 million years and forward. So really 66 million radiometric dating, which is not actually 66 million years ago. It's actually at the time of ancient Dwarka being sunk, according to Hindu scripture, because the earth expanded when it was attacked by vortex weapons. That caused all of this, inducing even vortices of energy into stone, imprinting the stone, shaping the stone, solidifying, and spawning these systems as they are, and then they just are relatively eternal in their state, no longer like quasars. They're just like chilling. They're more like balanced galaxies that aren't emitting ridiculous quantities of light. Sometimes they, though, had jets come out of them. They literally are galaxies, and so on. So this one just has this big old spot. Like, why would it do this? Why? And it's kind of arced like down into this side, like a flow going this way from over here maybe. That just really saturated the full width that it could influence. Going around. Something where it just like went around, maybe cut through here. Maybe it just pulls out the shale and reveals what's all like everywhere. Like it's possible this material, if the shale could just be like extracted by filtration, because it's finer grained water passing through, it could extract the shale while this material is left behind, and making it just, this is where current was flowing out of here and removing the shale enough to leave behind this patch of gold looking material. Not actually gold. Okay. Tiny little ammonite shape there, which is really, interestingly, Like a node here overall. Another ammonite here. That's a little awkward looking, like right there. Okay, it looks a little awkward. Like not quite normally shaped. Because currents are causing these things. Some chakras there. Interesting things going on over there. Definitely see a nice defined lobe over here. This looks like it's trying to be, and like it's trying to form some chakras, but it just couldn't at the edge of the rock over here. Like it needs space. Otherwise the currents, like if the current is like pressing into something and it's able to go atop it, then it will just go atop it. So it really needs a resistance to press into to then form the eddies against. So it looks like it like tried to. It had a pressure into this region that was shaping a ammonite lobes and chakras, but just was unable to because it was at the boundary at the top here and just able to lose too much of the pressure that was necessary to actually etch into the rock. So I couldn't like really push currents in. Also looks kind of like maybe some like as if this spawns from out here, having like a chakra out here beyond the rock along this face. I don't know. These connect. Has little teeth here. Like it's draining down out of here. Possibly going this way. Down and wrapping around and like pushing this side. Clear chakra there, an ammonite shape in general with a slight etching over here. That's interesting. And then this curving thing back there is interesting. This straight line, that looks like it connects back to that one, which then looks like it goes to there. These are probably relating, like connecting things then. Like this is going out of the top of this one, and possibly coming in over here and crossing, just crossing, while another current interacts with it, and then it causes an eddy at this point, which as the chakra, rather than like exactly where this current is, where it went through the lobe instead, and then over this way. Or this way, I guess. Interestingly, it really doesn't seem to have influenced this. Well, maybe, hard to say. Definitely some interesting features. I can't make out what's going on all that well. These things also, that's right, there's layers like here. Go across. And then reach up to the top where it kind of is able to drain. Out into like a bulk flow where the pressure is not actually against the rock itself, but along it and then away from it, remerging with the general surrounding currents without etching into the surface. Also looks like maybe something related to this, by this connection here, like right here. Going there, going up in different energy levels almost. Relating to the chakra too. So maybe current went this way, around, and back up this way, around. Some of it went down this way, some of it went down this way, so it filled in this region, but it also went back around. And some of it went up into this region, which then, when it did so, caused a cross current to whatever's flowing here and pushed it up, basically. So it ramps into these layers. And then time, erosion, and coincidence caused the fossil. The end. So cool. Sorry to mock. It's just, it deserves mockery in some ways. When it's false, but it's insisted upon. It's like, dudes, we haven't even talked about the options. There's so many possibilities. So many possibilities. Little ammonite in there definitely broke. This is the back side of that one. It's got some drill points going in that had like a outer ring that didn't etch the center portion as much, leaving behind this chunk here. Another that didn't actually get caught. Like this one actually dug into the rock where the one next to it went along it. And just etched here, possibly even going the other way. Maybe going through it, actually. It might have actually gone through here. If it went this way, and the one went this way, and the one went this way. Big old chambers. This reminds me of the one we were just looking at not too long ago. This one. Wherefore art thou, Shaligram? Is it not in here? There it is. Oh my god. This one. Forming these chambers down here. So I guess they are... These are... doing something like this. Where it's below. Below here. Chamber, chamber. It's starting to form the units, but at this one it did it like pristinely with all these dendrites at the end even popping out, because it's like flowing into resistance but moving forward, so it starts to like branch into things in ways, as well as maybe bent back over the top of it, this structure with dendrites, by current kind of getting pushed back that way and forming like stalagmites or stalactites or whatever. Those things. Kind of structures just like from drippings almost off that way from a general push in the current this way. I don't know. Possibly. It even looks like over here they're protected, so maybe it's pressure out here bending, but down here they look more angled. Normal. Teeth here. Ammonite here. Some kind of structure back here. This these teeth generally connect over that way, which connects to that thing around this, which also has some teeth looking thing, and maybe a top. So that is this one, which is down here. So there's that thing that looks like a top. It's actually that. So wrapping around the whole thing is this other ammonite. This one. It takes a very odd shape there. The way it does this is pretty odd. Smeared out dendrite. Like, dude, if it's a shell that has these things, why would it smear it out? Just time, erosion, coincidence. It's not complicated. Sure, can't answer anything any more than that, and really isn't an answer at all, but it's the truth. Coincidence. It's the truth. What do you want? What you want to understand with, like, be like God or something? See from up high. Be all high and mighty. Get on the ground. You're seeing things the way we said so. 'Cause we says so. 'Cause we says so. Like, whoa. This looks like that one I was saying that I started off with, I believe. It might have even been last recording. The weird shaped one that has the 3 lobes off of the side, kind of like over here. Spaced from one another. But where it had like cross beams across these almost. Kind of feels like that's happened here as well. And then one of them with a crack through it. Meaning a current was flowing this way. I don't know why I would do this exactly. It's certainly not coincidence, though. Or trace fossils or any other thing that effectively is coincidence. Trace fossils coincidentally did that kind of thing. Oh, sure. It's not, we're not saying coincidence anymore. We're saying the trace fossils did it, dude. What are you talking about? It's not coincidence. It's just they formed that shape by choice. That's what they chose to do. Because they're smart like that, okay? That's what they do. That's just what they do. Is mimic ammonite shapes in weird but not quite the same, but close enough to be distinguishably similar and related, just to fuck with us. Because that's what trace fossils do. Some kind of pole, another pole maybe. This one's a little off center, but looks like it's got some kind of channel that was here generally, as well as one cross current there. It's kind of like the other one where there's a cross current and then a structure past it, but with a channel leading to it this way that maybe even bends to go over there. I don't know. And then around this ammonite we can see some teeth. Maybe this even has some teeth-like structures, I don't know. Chakra with some interesting features, okay. Lots of little, that looks like Carolina Bay. Lots of little things around. Not to suggest Carolina Bay is that easily associated to Shaligrams. It may be that the processes are related enough. Carolina Bays are generally, I believe, interpreted to be the result of impact somehow. It's ridiculous. I know generally the reasoning, it's just not sound. They're definitely the result of the flood, which is when the earth expanded, which had eddies just like these, but on large scales, one of which was focused on the Great Lakes as its nucleus, generally around Michigan. And then another that was around the Finger Lakes, another centered at the Hudson Bay that spanned like all of Canada, overlaying the crust with water flowing in eddies. And those eddies then induced out like past a mountain range of the Appalachians, and just at boundaries of the eddy, these oddities where cross currents are. Like there's a cross current going. Here's the eddy center here. They're centered here. And then another one over here. Another one that was up here. Like literally an ammonite here. This one though, particularly was like influencing its surroundings over here, but current was flowing this way that went over here, around this way, around this way, around this way, up here, up here, up here, and out this way, as well as draining along the way. And when it drained though, that's where all the Carolina Bays are. They're really not on this side. Of this path right here. They're restricted to like over here. I thought there was some like right there. There's some here. Right there. Harder to see some of them. There's one. There's a bunch there. But if we follow this, they just stop. Hard stop as we approach this boundary, because they're not caused by impacts or whatever interpretation is being proposed generally by anyone who's not saying that they're caused by eddies that were during the global flood, during the Earth's expansion process that was induced by vortex weapons used against ancient Dwarka et al. Because I think it's several, like, across the whole time frame they were used multiple times, and that was more so the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. Punctured the mantle, caused a storm that allowed space to inwell through the mantle into the center of the earth, that then pushed out material from within and caused the earth to expand. So here's another one. Some interesting things going on here. Oh crap. Am I still playing music? Oh no. 38 minutes too. That's why I can't play music. Especially ones that are not 2 hours. An hour is kind of okay. 2 hours. I should have just stopped it there. I would have already been on this one too. I'd have already been done this one too. I just would hate for my videos to be muted for the time or fully taken down because of copyright infringement. Because I'm just playing shit on YouTube while I'm recording. I was thinking about making music. It's just so tedious. If I could just find copyright free music, chill music that I haven't played before, that would be optimal. Okay, let's keep going. Lots of Shaligram little things going on. These lines are of interest for sure, and just the overall flows that were present. Looks like a center lobe that energetically is related. Maybe a current flow that was creating like a chakra here, generally like a ammonite shape here, but then the flows were able to just like go around here and go around here, and instead of forming just a typical lobe on this side, I don't know, or go, I don't know. Okay, this is long enough. I'll be back in the next one. See y'all then. Peace out. Thanks for watching.